I'm very glad to welcome you all to the second session of the third day of the International Faculty Development Program titled Legal Research and Pedagogy in Changing Era. I know you all are eagerly waiting for the second session that is going on to be carried out by Dr. Ria Roy Mammon, who is currently an affiliated researcher at Van Vollenhoven Institute in the Faculty of Law at Leiden University, the Netherlands, on the topic Writing and Publishing of a Research Paper with Appropriate Citation Methods. I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Ria Roy Mammon to International Faculty Development Program titled Legal Research and Pedagogy in Changing Era. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Dr. Ria Roy Mammon is currently an affiliated researcher at the Van Vollenhoven Institute in the Faculty of Law at Leiden University, the Netherlands, working on the project Strengthening Legal Education in the Global South. She is also the director of Just in Focus Academic Consultancy, a registered organization focusing on improving legal research experience for scholars and handling projects comparing India and the Netherlands. Dr. Mammon has a decade of experience in academia as senior assistant professor and had served as IQSC coordinator for 5 years at Ramia College of Law, Bengaluru. She is a gold medalist in her graduation and an alumnus of the National Law University of India University for her master's and doctoral studies. She has also been an international fellow as an Indo-Canadian Shastri Fellow in Linnaeus Palm Fellow. Dr. Mammon has been a part of various international and national projects, especially the UNDP project, Paris Convention for Climate Change, and NCW projects on women's reproduction rights. Her publications have been indexed in Scopus, UDC Care List, and peer-reviewed journals. She has also served as the editor of half a decade books. Once again, I welcome all faculty members, research scholars, professionals, and other participants to this international FDP. I wish you all the best to the participants and look forward to a productive day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. So before, I hope, do we have to wait for anyone else, or I think everyone's joined? Are we expecting anyone else?
I think we can start, ma'am.
We can start. Perfect. Again, once again, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me, especially Vincy, who's a very close friend of mine. And I believe she's traveling again back to the US. But this is definitely an opportunity for me to interact with you and also share our experiences in research, right? So as the topic goes today which is a very tricky topic, I would say, writing and publishing of research papers with appropriate citation. And especially having this topic in the post-noon session is even more tricky, because just like some of the portions can tend to get a little boring and mechanical, but as far as possible, I'll try to make it as interactive, and for which I have targeted an exercise in the session. So I would request all the participants to take part in the exercise, because ultimately, this particular topic, along with the other topic, cannot be done through just a lecture, right? So we have an assignment that we're going to be doing it together during the course of the session, right? So thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Probably this is a time that, it's also time for you to feel good about yourself, right? So without much delay, let's start with the topic for the session, writing and publishing of research papers with appropriate citation method. So the first time I saw this topic, the only thing that came to my mind was, what is there so much to talk about when you just want to randomly publish a paper? You look at what journal you're publishing, write an article for the journal, identify the method that they've used, publish it. It's as simple as that. But when you break down this particular topic into different sections, that is when you identify the integrities involved in it. So for the purpose, I've distributed this session into 3 parts. All right. So first, I will establish the concept for you, looking into the different areas that is relevant in case of publishing, in case of writing, and and ultimately in case of citing, right? Then we're going to be looking at some examples, and probably I'm going to be referring to some of my article itself because nobody else otherwise would read that article, right? Then the most important part, I would rather say the second part of the session would be where, as participants, you will be exercising these, right? So whatever concept we have done, whatever you have in fact done for the past 2.5 days would be applied, and you're going to be doing that exercise with me. Are we okay? And you can also use emojis, thumbs up, thumbs down, clap, right? So I know we're on the same page. And of course, you can stop me anytime you have any questions, doubts. Please feel free to drop it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. So I know that there's the query that's waiting, right? And before I start, I hope everyone's, at least some of you have Zotero downloaded, and I'm also hoping that you've also used it, right? Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to break down this topic into parts, right? So this particular title has different components in it. We have the idea of research paper. We have a concept of writing. We have a concept of citing, and we have a concept of publishing, right? So publishing is one area I wouldn't go in depth because that's a dedicated session with Anish sir later tomorrow. So we're going to be focusing on what is a research paper that we're referring here. What is the idea of writing? What do you mean by citing, and what is the citation methods that we're referring? And how do we make it in practice? Okay. Now, about research paper, let me give you a disclaimer. As far as we're concerned here, we're not looking into thesis, or let's say we're not looking into a dissertation at the moment. At the moment, we are looking at articles, monograph, book chapters, or other legal research writing in terms of dissemination of your ideologies. Now, to clarify, let me give you a difference why there's a classification that way. Now, when you look at thesis or a dissertation, as a researcher, you're trying to satisfy your inquisitiveness to an identified topic, right? Now, when it comes to research paper, it's more of a reverse approach. You have your conclusion, you have your arguments, you have your ideology. Rather, you have your opinion in place, and you're moving it backwards to see what are the literatures, what are the arguments that are already existing that is supporting your opinion. Got it? You wouldn't do that for your dissertation or thesis, because that will make you a biased researcher, because there you are more of a person trying to find an answer, right? So you have the concept of legal research, what is the purpose, likewise in it. So as far as research paper, particularly for the session is concerned, we would be focusing on how do you approach an article, how do we approach a book edited chapter, or rather, an opinion piece of yours into a black and white document. Okay. Now, once you know that this is what you want to do, the first and most important thing that you will have to do is to identify a research topic. And identifying a research topic for an article or a research paper would differ from identifying it for thesis or dissertation. Now, how does it differ? It differs on the basis of your opinion, right? So your research topic for a research paper would be your opinion on a specific subject matter. Now, let me take an example to clarify it further. Now, all of us here have handled a paper, one or the more paper, in fact, right? So you would be a teacher of constitutional law, tort law. You have different topics that you have handled through the class. And while handling different topics, say, let me take an example, say citizenship, for instance, right? Now, when you're handling citizenship, there is certain inherent opinion that has arisen out of handling that specific topic. You probably agree or disagree with certain aspects that's discussed. Or maybe you may agree or disagree with certain environmental policies, right? So you have, from your basic research or your understanding or subject matter knowledge, you have an opinion about that of a specific area. Now, you need to understand that further. Now, while looking into this, you see that there are conflicting opinions or suggestion or arguments to what you believe. Say, for example, let me take an example of what we've seen here. Now, all of us would be familiar with the concept of EIA, Environment Impact Assessment, right? So we are all aware that huge projects require environment impact assessment. Like when you come to the Scandinavian countries, or let's say like come to the global, this side, the concept of EIA is extended to even building a house, right? So a person from, say, from India, like say, I personally would disagree with that concept. Now imagine conducting EIA for every tiny, imagine all the documentation you have to do to even get a house constructed in India, right? Imagine having an additional document or a paper, more than a paperwork, entire process associated with constructing house. So now they say what the argument on this side is that you have to have EIAs conducted for every house that's constructed, making sure they are in compliance or not against the materials used are not against the environment. The space taken is not, excessive heating is not used. They have a lot of lists that's contained in it. Imagine that being taken up in a place like India, right? It is not practically feasible, or say it is a tedious task in itself. So as a scholar or a researcher interested in environment law, I have my reservation against the concept of EIA. So I have an opinion formulated in my mind saying EIA in case of small scale construction is absurd, right? So now my research topic identifying for a topic would revolve around that particular opinion of mine, right? So when you identify a research topic for a research paper, you need to be conscious to make sure it's not extremely broad and it is focused to understand something that can draw out a specific opinion to. Now, why is that? That is because, see, you have an entire pool of literature already existing, right? You don't want people to read more facts. The journals or even a book edict, like unlike the books, maybe, journals, online media do not require more facts stated in. They would want to see an interpretation, an argument that is for or against of anything that, certain contribution from the scholars, right? So that is why we are conscious about the research topic chosen. And this becomes crucial, especially in the journals that you are going to be publishing in. Say, for example, now you have identified areas of research. Got it? Now, when you have identified areas of research, certain journals might be theme specific. So especially when you're looking at a journal that is theme specific, please be informed that they are looking at something that where you have a strong argument statement to be made. So one good thing about articles or research paper is that you are your creator, right? You have the freedom to believe what you're doing. Now, how do you justify that argument and how do you suggest based on that argument is what your research paper is going to distinguish you? Okay, so now you understood the highlight of research paper distinguished from a thesis or dissertation is the way you select your topic. And the best way to do is to see what you opinionate a particular matter on. And one another way that you can keep in mind while doing this is, as a subject teacher, you have two ways of looking at it. One can be based on your PhD topic, or one can be based on the topic that you're dealing with in your class, right? Now, the second thing that you do when it comes to research paper is to see which is the journal that you want to write for. So what generally happens is we start writing on a particular topic, right? We start writing, we have an interest for a particular area, we start writing for a topic. Now, what happens is once you write for a topic is when you start looking for journals. Now, that kind of increases the burden on the scholar to transform your article to suit the journal requirement. So what you do here is once you've identified your area, say, let me say I'm going to take on environmental law, right? When you've identified your journal, when you identify a research topic, the second thing you're going to do is to search on the existing journals, one dedicated specifically for that particular area, or if you want an immediate publication, look for contemporary or general law and society journals with, say, an immediate or a 2-month deadline. Okay, so that is where the first, when you identify the research topic, then you go out to identifying the journal that you want to suit yourself with, right? We have not gone into researching about the topic. So you have your topic in mind, you identify the journal. So at this point, I want you as participants to think about us, because for the assignment, we're going to come back. So now is your time to think about a research topic based on what you've done in class, on your PhD or whatever, to see what is that probable research topic that you want to write on. Okay, just keep that thought in mind. Note it down somewhere. Keep it on a paper because we're going to use that later on. Okay, once you have identified the journal and the topic, the most important thing prior to even reading about it, because let's presume when you do a research paper, we are presuming you have the background information about it. So you have the substantial information that has contributed to your opinion. So when you're proceeding with a research paper, we are presuming that you have that background information. Okay, with that presumption that you have the background information of the paper, you, even before you go into justifying your argument, you're going to be writing down or structuring out the argument that's in your head. Got it? So you have an opinion. So now as a person who's probably read little on EIA, I'm going to be structuring on my argument to say EIA for small scale industry, say for constructions below so-and-so areas is not feasible for these reasons. So that's my structure in my mind, right? From my background information and what I've read and what has formulated my opinion. So what I'm going to do down is to put out that sequence, which would be less than half a page. But I'm going to list out saying, what is the logic of my conclusion? So generally what is said here is you do something like the mind mapping, right? It's nothing but a flow chart or a pictorial representation of your ideology. So I put EIA as a center for housing. Now I draw out an analysis, draw out something to say, why is it not feasible for housing? Now that would draw me to say, okay, in a country like India, where the documentation requires a multiple level, the tedious process in EIA, then maybe the cost incurred, feasibility. So I have certain points that's in my head. I'm going to list them out. Now, once I've listed them out, then I would say, okay, if EIA, but you have a contrary argument saying that is for the purpose of safeguarding the environment. Now I would look at, so what is the alternative way that we can look at, so now we need to bridge a gap. What is it I can do alternate? What are my alternative suggestions that I can think about? So I probably remember you would only have a peripheral idea. That's fine. That's absolutely okay. So you draw out that ideas there. So now what you have here is you have a research topic. You probably have an idea about 3-4 journals that you are considering. So you can always, depending upon your experience in writing, you can start off with, say, a general peer-reviewed journal to a Scopus index journal. Now, how do you identify the journal? I believe there's a specific session on that itself, research publication, but otherwise, then again, you look at what are the journals that you can possibly consider. I wouldn't say all the articles must only be published in Scopus. Peer-reviewed is also accepted here. Now, you have a reservation on predatory journals or paid journals for certain reasons, right? So what has to be recognized as a solid publication, you can choose where you want to do it. Now, based on these informations you have, you draw out a structure. Okay, so now you have a topic with you. I'm presuming you've thought about a topic, and I would want you to draw out as you listen, because listening to me alone can be a little boring, right? So you can draw out, okay, what is those 2-3 points of ideologies, why you think this is a strong opinion that the public needs to know, right? So you're looking at rather an outcome approach, which you do a backward search on. Got it? And please remember, you cannot do this in your PhD. Okay. In your thesis or dissertation, you would be labeled as a biased, but ultimately every researcher is biased. Got it? So now that you have your research paper, at least the topic in mind, now we're going to see into how do you conduct the research for it. Okay. Now that is where the next part comes in. It's before writing. Now to conduct research on it, but I will, yes. Now first process of conducting research is to see, of course, the research topic. Then you have identified the journal you want to look into. Most important thing is to see you drew out your ideology. Once you've drawn out your ideology, you have 2 important tasks here, right? One is to see what are the materials that you have in this area. Yeah. So in this, one of the things that you should take care of is, instead of directly going to a Google search, right? Instead of directly going into a Google search, it's always recommended that you use the legal database first. The reason being, I'm sure now that we are talking to mature level of audience, you would be able to bifurcate between the authentic and unauthentic source of information. But once you've identified the area and you have drawn your outline, you're going to spot your materials. Now, spotting your material has to be specific because you are looking at specific areas, right? So where you're going to use what we know as the keyword search, right? So you learn that in the literature review, right? So you're going to spot materials that's probably going to look at, convince your argument, and also look at that challenged your argument, right? You would spot materials that has both aspects to it. Once you've identified the materials, you will, of course, you go through the process of literature review. Now, while you go through the process of literature review, remember the outline that we have? That outline would get clarified based on your reading. Because see, what you had drawn out first on the outline was based on your perception, right? Once you have done the literature review, you see the certain terminology or structuring that needs to be included in your outline. Once that is included, you start improvising your outline. So that will draw out what are the heads that you want to include in your article. Okay. Now, once you've done this outline, you're going to take a break from the reading of spotting of material, coming back to the journals that you've identified for publication. Right? Now, once you've identified the journal, please remember every journal has a writing style. Got it? Not everyone follows a similar structure, though it's all overlapping. You look at what are the writing styles included in the journal. So some of them say, for example, if it's depending on, now you would have an article, short article, notes, discussion, even it might be, a smaller piece of information that you're going to share. Right? So you are going to be identifying what is that area you want to contribute. Do you want to contribute as an long article, short article? What is the pair wordings? How have they structured the article? Now, once you identify 4-5 styles, and preferably in order to avoid confusion, try to find journals that are similar writing styles. Right? Where some of them would have a standard style of, say, introduction, background, legal framework, research methodology, results, and likewise. So once you have that, your outline that you have in hand will be modified to suit that. Got it? So once you're modified and you have an outline that's completely drawn out based on your background research, your research is considered to be half done. Because you know what you're going to be doing. You know the direction in which you're going to be doing. You know what is your conclusion, right? You know what you are going to be writing in that particular argument. Now your job is to fill in that outline. Now, while filling in the outline is where you have more research that goes into. Now, when I talk about research, what is correspondingly replicated is what? Google search. Now, Google search is not wrong. Now, it's about finding a Google search is not the problem. Now, it's also about what you're going to read. You're going to read someone else's opinion. What are you going to be reading about? What is the kind of material that is why it is recommended that you always start with legal databases, right? So it's not just you have JSTOR or, the legal databases. You can easily start with Manupatra's articles. You can start with and you have the open source journals. At least look at what is the existing articles in this area. Has someone already identified, right? And then when you look at, say, this is the area that you're looking at, you look at those keywords and start collecting information, right? Now, I will come back to this. How do you fill information? Just hold on, because that is a very important part, right? I'm just going to give the entire process first, then we're going to go back. Okay, hold the filling of information, which is very important. Then, one of the most intimidating factor for general writers, maybe not seasoned writers, at least it was for me, was filling in citations, right? It is the most intimidating because once you find the journal, you would have an idea, you have your materials. Now, putting it across in a form they want can be intimidating. Now, what do? So one of the practice that I did, or at least the advice I got was, don't worry about citing it down. Okay. You have got your ideologies, you have got your information, put it out, definitely in order not to miss out, mark your reference. Okay, it may not be in the exact style, but mark your reference. What was the source of your information? Where did you get it from? And, mark your reference in terms of what was the article reference that you've made. Once you've made your reference point and you've finished writing, as in put on all your ideologies and your thoughts of conclusion into it, you have the raw material, raw draft of your paper that you can now work on. Right? Now, while you work on is where you would work out your improvising the writing style, grammar, and most importantly, the references or the citations. Now, in this entire process, we first looked at how do you bring out that ideology into a black and white format. Then we are looking at how do you have an outline and fill in and references. Now, I hope you're clear with the first part of identifying the topic, because the first 4 points are related to that. Okay. Now we're going to be looking into how do you fill your outline. Got it? Now, filling your outline is a little tricky. It's not about putting in all the materials that's there. Now, there are different people have different writing styles. You have your personal writing style, right? I mean, you cannot say one writing style is wrong from the other. Now, let's take an example. What I faced here when I moved to the Netherlands is where the Indian writing style is not wrong. We have a lot of focus probably on the methodology and a little less on the academic discourse. Whereas here on the side, there's an in-depth analysis of academic discourse, and we come to the methodology only when asked. So there are different writing styles depending on the specific area or the journal. So that is where your task first would come to read articles of your identified journal to identify what is the writing style they demand. Right? So it may be possibility that your writing style does not suit the writing style of the journal, which may lead to rejection. That doesn't mean your article is bad. It simply means that's not what they are looking at it from that particular journal point of view. Right? So now, while understanding this, you have generally two forms of writing styles that I will be discussing with you. Got it? First is the general, which is generally followed, especially journals back in, we have our national journals, or maybe, even in form of, say, national or certain international journals. What is generally followed? A writing style would introduce you to the concepts there. So now you have an outline based on this. So one would be about, one of the general follow style that we generally see is, one, a strong introduction. And for an article, your introduction carries a lot of relevance, right? Unlike an elaborate document that you're writing, your introduction cannot beat around the bush. Got it? Your introduction must clearly state. In any writing style you follow, your introduction must clarify what is that as a researcher you are going to be writing on. What is that you have started off with? But please be careful. The first 2-3 lines must be generic, because you don't know the reviewer's perspective, right? So you know that this goes through a double review and likewise. So rather than having, biased start, you're going to always remember to start your article with a positive note. Imagine, someone comes and writes saying, all environmental law is absurd. Why would someone want to be having more negativity into you, right? So you start off 1 or 2 lines generically about environmental law, how it is transformed, how the Indian environment law is transformed, and, maybe the time for look into it, something that's general and soothing. Okay. Then you go into looking at what is a specific area or ideology that you as a researcher is looking at. Because as a research paper, you don't have the scope to look at an elaborate area. Your scope is predefined and very specific. So I am primarily, say I'm writing an article on EIA for housing sector. I'm very specific about what that I am looking at, right? So I need to be clear about what my area is in my introduction. This is followed by the structure of the paper. The reason being, the reader is prepared to see, okay, what is that can be expected from this particular paper. Yeah. So of course, a little suspense here and there is okay, so that, they kindly end up reading the end, but they know if that particular concept or what is expected from this. So it would be, I can put in saying environmental law, EIA, which refers to so and so. And for the purpose of the readability, I would be looking into the existing legislations in India and say Netherlands, for example, looking at how the housing sector has responded to it, challenges faced, for which empirical study has been conducted, and so on and so forth. And followed by the conclusion drawn from these studies. Yeah. So I have a structure in mind. My readers have a structure in mind, that I know that my target audience are going to understand what they can expect from my paper. Now, that being in place, you come down to now generally say it as a background or the legal framework, legal article, right? So we look at the legal framework, which is definitely the international law and the national laws. International laws, you would definitely look at the conventions, practices, principles followed, what is the national regulations, how courts have approached to it. And you should be very careful to ensure that any legal framework that you mention has a connection to the focus of your paper, right? There would be a tendency to be generic about your report, right? Say, for example, when I'm looking at housing sector specifically, and I have EIA principles in hand, I must be careful to say the environmental principles so and so, or the say in Rio Declaration or in say the conventions, or how this particular portion or the provision is connected to what my research is, so that I am not rather just giving them generic information. Having generic information is okay if you have like a 50-page journal, like in a long title, or you're writing a monograph. That's fine, setting the tone for your reader. But here, you're setting a tone for your ideology or your paper. Okay. Once you have done that, one important portion that we generally say, at least I personally would have missed out, was the existing academic discourse. Got it? Now, what do you mean by existing academic discourse? Now, I have certain concepts in mind, right? Now, I have a concept of EIA in mind. I have a concept that principles about introducing it for housing sectors, having it for every small industry. Now, existing academic discourse would look into this is what you overlap, see as literature review. But what distinguishes it is to see who are the noteworthy authors in this area. So you're not going to be citing every book and every literature that has given lead to your information. Rather, you're looking at information and discussions that academia or earlier journals have taken up. So what you're looking here is a similar topic arguments that's existing in your area. Are we okay? Let me give an example here. Now, let's say Leela Krishnan sir, who's pioneer in environment law, probably has an article written on supporting introduction of EIA back in early 2000s, right? So now he on one side. Now let's say there's another professor of law or a jurist who's written an article which says that there's an existent feasibility. Such a recommendation of EIA does not stand feasible. Now I'm going to be taking those discourse in my articles to say these academic discourse through light on this kind of concepts. Are you with me? So we are looking at what is the existing discussion that has happened in the specific ideology that we have for the literature. Okay, so please be clear to distinguish it from the literature review, because literature review, the prime focus would be to help you identify the literature gap. Now, when you look at academic discourse, you are trying to tell them that this discourse is existing. Someone started it. Maybe there is more to contribute to it. Got it? Now, once you've pointed out your academic discourse, or rather, maybe a wider perspective of literature review, you draw out what is the key focus of your paper. Every paper has a key focus. You must have your key focus. So you're going to expand or specify the scope of your paper. right? You're going to say what is that you as a scholar would be focusing on. You will deliberately tell them into saying, as a scholar, this is what I would be studying through it, right? Now, after identifying the focus, most of the scopus indus journals, for instance, or rather even now in most of the peer reviewed, it's not a mandatory thing. It is always recommended to have it. They ask for what is the methodology that you've adopted. So it's absolutely okay to have a doctrinal method. Now, if you're having a doctrinal method, what is the scientific method you've applied to analyze those doctrines in place? Have you used literature mapping? Have you used thematic analysis? Or have you used, it's a definitely analytical for sure. What is a scientific way in which you've drawn out that analysis? Because let's say, for example, now here is where the idea of bias for an article research paper may come in. Now, if I'm going to say I've applied analytical method in my doctrinal research, and I randomly pick out some articles and say, simply draw it from my ideology as a biased person to say, okay, this article fails to justify EIA because of this. Now, who am I to say that, right? What is the strict parameters on which you've identified those articles or evaluated those articles? So I'm sure you probably, when you did literature review also, you have probably seen the mapping method in literature review, right? Why? Because especially for advanced researchers, right? When you are targeting for journals that is of indexed level, like they are quite maybe a level of particularity in terms of what is the scientific method you've drawn to draw out this analysis. So you can definitely have an empirical. You can definitely have a doctrine. Absolutely, doctrinal is brilliant. You can have a jurisprudential paper. You have a like say as simple as recently you had a discussion about I think Al-Azhar itself had a discussion of 50 years of Keshwananda Bharati. Now you're looking at a jurisprudential part of how Keshwananda Bharati has contributed to understanding constitution. Now you're writing a jurisprudential paper on. It's perfectly all right. But what they're looking at is what is that you've done to have a scientific understanding to it. Now, tell me, how many of you are with me still? Are you following? How many of you have slept? How many of you have gone?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We all are here.
Yeah, all are here? Very good. Yes. Okay, that's good to know. Because I believe in karma, if I sleep through a session, then my students also sleep through a session. Okay. Yeah. But it's quite normal to, zoom out. It's perfectly all right to zoom out also. Yeah, thank you. So now we're looking at, so are you clear till here? So I hope you have your research topic in mind, because I'm going to come back and, pull out people asking you for things. I hope you have your research topic. Let's say to keep the journal part for later. At least you have that in mind. Yeah. Now you're looking at what is the methodology. Definitely after a basic reading, you're going to identify that. Then you go into identifying the findings. So if I'm going to say I have an analysis drawn out from the jurisprudence or any of the methodology, I'm going to say this is the methodology that's used. I have certain findings identified in this area, right? So how am I going to draw out that findings? Now, how am I going to draw that findings will based on, so it's analysis and findings. I'm going to be analyzing based on the previous existing literatures or based on the data that I've collected or on the method that I've identified. Okay. Now, based on that, I have drawn out certain findings. Now, remember, we have an opinion in our head. And based on that opinion is what we're going to be actually, we are being biased here to see if these literatures satisfy our findings. Got it? So we have literatures to our satisfaction, and you would also see the literatures against the argument. So please make sure you have to make sure your article refers to those opposing views and justify why you as a scholar does not agree with that. Are you with me? That is very important. You cannot completely ignore someone who disagrees with you, right? There's a reason why that person would be disagreeing with you. Okay, so that is where the findings or the analysis comes in. Once you have found out, I would say suggestion and then conclusion. So once you have drawn out, you have certain analysis in hand to say your reasons out, right? Once you've taken your reasons out, you're going to draw out your suggestions. You draw out your suggestions saying, because of the above said factors, the researcher strongly believes that EIA is not feasible for small scale structures for whatever. On the contrary, it can consider these, you can highlight some areas. Maybe looking at avoiding, maybe EIA in a, modified version of not having public participation, maybe having an independent body which the economic, extreme suggestion would be where the cost is borne by the government. You have a subsidiary body, because, the moment you have someone doing conducting EIA for you, you are looking at the feasibility and cost. So you have your suggestions that is justifying. So if you're opposing a view, you're giving an alternative suggestion. And once you have given your alternative suggestion, you have a conclusion drawn out. Okay. So this is generally what, generically you can see in papers. This is what can be followed. One writing style that can be followed. Okay. Second, there is a different writing style, especially seen in specific legal journals, right? Some of the, I wouldn't say really good journals, some of the journals, because you cannot classify journals based on that. But some of the, especially in the Scopus journals, and now even the careless journals, some of them would appreciate a writing style that's followed here is, your research topic has two parts, primarily introduction and conclusion. Yeah. Certain things based on introduction, your middle part would focus on your suggestion. Because usually this is a style followed in short articles. Because say, when you're looking at a long article, you have the space. So you want an article for 10,000 words, you have the space to include a different discussion. You have the space to, eventually come down to your suggestion. Now, what happens when you have only say 2,000 or 3,000 words for an article? Now let's look at EPW articles, right? You have a space for shorter articles. Now, how do you include all your suggestions in there? So one of the ways in which you can approach that particular paper, especially if you're looking at a short title and intensive, this is an intensive way of research, is introduction. You have certain components. Then your focus would be based on your suggestions. Got it? So your introduction will state definitely the facts, as in what is the concept or an issue that you identified and you wish to address to your research. What is the background information? So introduction subheads would be, the background, your issue, the scheme of paper, and methodology. Got it? Once you've identified that concise, you're going to say based on the existing literature, information, and academic discourse. So you would start off with academic discourse. You're going to say this is what the scholar will be focusing on. The academic discourse that existed at this time was so and so. Based on the study, the following suggestions have been drawn by the researcher. Now, how are you looking at these suggestions? How do you justify these suggestions? Then keeping the focus, your suggestion as a focus, you're going to give out explanation. So what is a good thing? You have your point put across. Because so now you need to think from a reviewer's point of view. They're going to be getting 200, 300 articles. They need to pick the best out of it, right? I mean, whatever the most, whatever closest to their theme that justifies. So you will focus on your suggestions. Provide, okay, now my suggestion is rule out public participation in EIA. For example, I'm just giving an example. Now that is the first part. Then I can give an explanation of why public participation was initially in EIA, purpose, and why as a researcher, based on whatever academic discourse, it will not be feasible in small scale industry if EIA is made mandatory. Got it? So I have a suggestion highlighted. I have stuff included into it. Got it? So I'm not wasting paper and I'm not wasting my words, because I have to be very conscious about every word that I do, right? Now, similarly, that I go for my second suggestion. Now, economic burden on, let's say on the owners. Now, how do I justify that? How do I clarify it using appropriate resources? Concept. Okay. Similarly, I would draw out for the third or how many ever suggestions I have. So the key over here, what happens here is you have pointed out how your paper is going to be different, because your suggestions are what distinguishes your paper. You've drawn out how your suggestions are distinguished, how it can be useful, and whatever you are based on identifying, followed by a conclusion, which is a summary of your findings, suggestions, and likewise. So this is another writing style that you will see. So this you can see in the journal. So some of the journals are open about their style. So let's say one of the example that I will take again is going to be on Asian Journal of Legal Education. So they had a different writing style that's followed, but they care about how do you distinguish your journal from the exit. So especially, what happens here is when you're theme specific journals, right? You should remember that topic has been exploited. Now you are going into a pool of area that's already exploited and trying to convince them to see how is it different? How is your research paper any different from that's already done? So imagine a journal has a history of 20 years and they come out 3 times a year. That particular area has been overexploited. Then you're trying to distinguish and tell them, see, you have something new to contribute to the pool of information. And I personally believe one of the best styles would be this, to say, you're showcasing to them how your paper is different from what's already in the existing field. What is a new research that you can bring in? Got it? Now I'm looking at the third style. Now, especially it's in the growing phase, is the empirical legal article. Now, all of us are, we've heard so much about ChatGPT, right? I like ChatGPT. I mean, I'm sure, there's so many people who have reservation with ChatGPT because ChatGPT bluffs a lot. But in the era of ChatGPT, right, you're competing with AI technology who is faster in collecting materials than us, who has probably a better language than us because they're trained. Yeah. So you have a lot of information in your hand. So does ChatGPT. Now, how do we survive in this era? Definitely your analysis is what distinguishes you. Your data is what distinguishes you, right? How your interdisciplinarity, because now growing time is the interdisciplinarity that you bring into your research. Got it? Why I said advanced researchers here is primarily because of the intensive research methodology that is required in the case. And it's not polite to burden young researchers with this demand, right? Having a journal published, say, even in a paid journal shouldn't be looked down, especially for the beginners, because you need to start somewhere, right? You need to start writing, especially because writing is a practice. You're going to make your mistakes. Sometimes the reviewers is just going to send back readings after readings, right? You need to start somewhere and you only improvise after you write multiple times. So before I joined my postdoc here, I think I've applied close to 7 postop applications to different institutes before I actually found my space. And all 7 applications had is that. And what's the best part that worked? These professors were kind enough to get back to with what was my error. What was that I was missing in my writing style? So one of the areas that we look at here is an advanced version would be an empirical legal article. So we look at it from a point of view, say a journal of, especially since my area was on legal education, look at a journal of legal education by American Association of Legal Studies, right? Now, they are very particular about empirical legal articles. How have I found out this? How have I conducted this particular journal? Now, in that, the writing style is focused on the methodology that you've adopted, data collected, summarizing the results, right? So generally that would, of course, in the introduction or the literature review, have the academic discourse, but the focus would be on the empirical information that you've gathered. Got it? And this is ideal for those in the final stage of PhD or those who've done with your PhD, because you would have collected some amount of data for your research can be utilized for conversion into an article, right? So in the empirical legal studies, you're looking at a writing style which focuses on the introduction that would carry out the relevance, that would give out your research review and your hypothesis. Then you're looking into the method, followed by the method would be to specifically say which particular empirical method have you looked at, what is a sampling design, what is a research design that justifies it, how do you justify that, what was the method of data collection, data tools used, and whatever you've done in your 2.5 days of class. Based on that, you've drawn out certain information. And how do you understand the results that you've drawn out from the findings? So please remember, you may not be able to use all the graphs that's there because you would have generic information that was collected, personal profiling of candidates and likewise. You cannot use those. Then you would summarize the results, interpret what the results mean based on your hypothesis. What are the questions you're going to face? And reflect on your findings and suggestions. Got it? So in an empirical research, it's a topic by itself. You would look at a focus that's going to be from the methodological point of view. That's going to be a different writing style. Got it? So now these are the three primary, you would have different writing style depending on the journal, on the researcher, what, you and the journal needs to be in a sync. Got it? You know what? If no one publishes your article, go ahead and publish it as monograph also. Nobody can stop you on that. You still have a publication. So monographs, you can get your ISBN number. Go ahead and do it. And especially institutions, just a tip from the accuracy point of view. Go ahead if you have these kind of articles that, probably doesn't suit ideologies. If you think it's relevant, that can be, go ahead and have monographs coming out. That would definitely add on to the institutional publication. Got it? Have your own reviewers come in, and definitely while scaling it out, it may not be in par with any of the Scopus journals, but you still have your publications in hand, right? So don't go any of the research work go in waste, right? Are we okay till here? Are we good? Am I going too fast? Because I really want you to do the exercise.
Oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. It's okay.
It's okay?
Yeah,
it's okay. Thank you.
Fine.
Okay. Yeah. Because we're going to go out and do some exercises, I'm thrilled about that. Now we discussed about this. So now you understood about how do you identify your research topic? And you also understood about how do you fill in the outline. And just don't go around chuma filling in whatever you information. Go do that. First draft, yes. You read, you do that. Okay. But what is the writing style you're going to look at? I will show you an example. Right? So don't worry about that. Now we're just going to look at, and I'm just going to do a little of self-promotion. I'm going to look at one of my, this is Scopus Index Journal. I'm just running it through so, you have an idea about it. So this is published in Asian Journal of Legal Education. And now when I first gave this article, I followed the first writing style. Okay, so this was based on research experience I had in Canada. And this was to make a comparative study of India-Canada experiential legal education. Now, the first article that went in, it came back with, I think there were more review suggestions than my article itself. The reviewer was a Canadian professor who said, how could she make such a statement? What is a basis for such a statement? How does she, he even commented on the word, is it capital letter T or small letter T? I wanted to actually call my English teacher and ask, what is the difference? What is the emphasis difference on it? So, the reviewer came back, which is very disheartening. And it took me a month's time to review that article and I changed the writing style. Can you see the article? I don't think you can, no? Let me know if you can see.
Oh, yes, no.
Yes.
No.
Okay, I wanted to do something that I was familiar with. You can take any article to understand, right? So what I did here was I changed the writing style to say, initially it was the first, as I said, first, I laid out the principles, what is experiential learning, what did bar council say about it? I could bluff a lot. Once that was done and I got a lot of review come back, fortunately, they didn't reject it. What I did was, after I gave a conceptual framework of the article, I tried to understand the concept in the legal context, right? looked at what experiential education looks in legal context. And through this, I started making my comparison then itself. So when I looked into the experiential learning in legal context, we looked at how India looks at it and how the Canadian experience looks at it. Now, for the Canadian experience to be drawn out, I looked at what the authors or what the particular literature that existed at that point of time in Canada looked at. Then thereafter, I looked at how to see, okay, how do you see an integrated approach? So where do I see an integrated approach in India? What do I see in Canada? So I made that approach started from the beginning, followed by specifically to see why particularly Canada. What was the reason, evolution, and so forth. Now, then, after the first, say, 1,000 words, I moved on to my analysis and included whatever the literature supporting my argument into it, or supporting or opposing my argument into it. Because this is what is unique to my experience, right? See, as far as we have Google search, information is with all of us. Why would someone want to consider an article if you're just simply going to be stating that information? They are looking at what is the author carry uniquely. See, all of us here has a unique experience to carry. As a teacher in a specific subject itself, after teaching it for so many years, you would have thought about that subject more than anyone else would have. So you have a unique experience to carry on that subject. So start throwing in that unique experience there, right? So what I did was, and the best way to do it, always, I personally, I don't know about if you can, represent it with a flow chart or a table. Because that, to develop a flow chart or a table or otherwise, brings in a clarity of concept. So you're being very, go ahead and explain it thereafter, okay? But you have your ideology drawn out pictorially. You can imagine when someone teaches you with a, you use your slides or otherwise, you connect to them better. So will your students connect to you better, right? I mean, rather than just telling them, okay, in this particular case, this is what happened. Yeah, use that creativity here. Now, once you draw that out, then it was about focusing on my suggestion to draw out, okay, to strengthen the clinics in India. My first suggestion, as simple as it may sound. But then that is where I referred to the historical background of clinical legal education. Because if I because earlier I started with clinical legal education. So what happens is my reviewer got bored. Quite natural, you start off, in 1947, war happened. Nobody wants to know. Nobody really cares about, by the time they come to our suggestion, they're tired, they're exhausted from their reading. So bring in your idea. Okay, now you throw in that point that gives you a clarity. Say, this is why you think you need to strengthen claims, why it's not strengthened here. So you have cited your sources there, right? You would see numbers. We will come to citation later, but you see how it's cited there. Then you go to your second suggestion. So likewise, you are showcasing your suggestions, looking at how is it distinguished from existing literatures. Because remember, as I said, when you're looking at theme-specific journals, please remember they have heard about your topic so many times. And every scholar thinks their topic is the best. Got it? Now, next, looking at, that is one of the ways that you will look at. That is one of the examples that I wanted to share with you. Okay. Now, oh, sorry, I'll just go back to screen sharing to my slides. Yeah. Okay. So you got an idea about how do you do your research writing? Don't worry about language. Nobody is born knowing that even our vernacular language, we wouldn't be an expert. And you would improve it definitely by practice. Make your mistakes, do your errors, maybe start off. I'm sure you would all be advanced in your career in terms of writing. Go ahead, write. Start with a blog, maybe 100 per page, get it reviewed by someone, get your correction done. Use ChatGPT for that. Ask ChatGPT what is the error that you made. Learn grammar from that, or use Grammarly, or even better, use Microsoft. The premium version has editor involved in it. Learn from it. You just have to start writing. Do not wait till you have a complete grip on the language, right? So language is not a barrier for you to write. I'm sure nobody has a language barrier here probably, but your ideology shouldn't be a barrier. So you think about, and you would probably be conflicted with a lot of ideas. You probably be beginning your academic career. Please remember, even a classroom lecture has something to contribute. Remember the discussion you had with a student. It might be a challenge that came from a student. It might be a challenge that you gave to the student, right? That might be enough to translate it into a research article. Okay. Now, once you've filled in information, we're going to be now the most, at least for me personally, the most intimidating was citations. That was also one of the reasons. I don't know if any of you faced that, or was it just me? Anyone faced an intimidation with citation? Anyone? I'm still intimidated. With the ample number of citation methods, nobody? You can say no also, it's okay. Anyone? No one? I see, so I'm not the only one. There are people who also found intimidated. Because imagine the number of citation sources that's existing. We are familiar with Blue Book or Scholar, say ILI. Apart from that, in India or anywhere, depending upon the local journal, say even in Netherlands, for example, they have a Netherlands citation method, which they pronounce in Dutch, which I can't pronounce. Okay, you have Canadian citation method, you have the Chicago manual style, you have APA format, you have MLA. Who can remember all these citations? So it was definitely intimidating. But unless your citation is done, you will not clear your plagiarism. Your article will not be published. But thanks to all the method that, that you can make your life so much easy, the day I found out about Zotero, it made life so much easier, right? But definitely you have a manual work that gets in, but it's not difficult. Okay. Now I also do Google search for my citations to get, can you please give me the citation on this? And likewise. So now once you have content, you have made a reference for your material, your ideology is good, your writing is good, you've done all that. Now comes to the most intimidating and irritating part, is citing your journal. Yes, we're going to be practicing that. So remember, I hope your paper is ready. I mean, your topic at least is ready. Okay. It's about citing. Now, so what is citation? Is nothing but citing the source of your information, right? Citing the source of your information in the text or inbuilt. So it can be, depending on, say, EPA, for example, do an APA citation, right? APA citation is what it's an American psychological citation, which is within the text. And I was always I used to wonder, what is the authenticity? Why you just put the author's name and the year? In fact, APA is the most common that is inbuilt in Microsoft. I'm sure not everybody's as silly as me I am, but it's a method. So when you click, you get the source of it, right? So you are citing it to say your idea is not out of the blue. Maybe, like how apple fell on Newton's head, your idea would have also popped up, right? But that alone is not sufficient. You have based your arguments on certain already existing information. You are acknowledging that information through citing those papers. Nothing new. We all know that. Next important one, but why do you want to cite it? See, some of the, say, if you actually look at some of the journals, right, or some of the books, you would see they don't have any citations. It's not because they don't believe in it. It's also because, it might be the practice that they follow as endnotes. So citation may be in text, citation may be footnote, citation may be end text. All right. Now, the reason which is familiar to all of you is nothing but one, the authenticity of the source that you have looked at. Now, when I say the authenticity of the source that you've looked at, the question would come, what happens to Wikipedia? Come on, Wikipedia is still good. There'll be a reference to it. But what happens to certain sources are, they may not be validated. It may be a personal opinion of an individual. Now, that is not wrong. So it can be that every child can have an opinion. But when that wouldn't justify as an authentic citation because it does not be reviewed or verified by a person. Got it? You can still cite it, but that should not be your primary source of writing. So you can put it as, inside to say, okay, remotely, it's hard not to refer to a Wikipedia information that was given, but that wouldn't be a substantial citation. Got it? It would be recommended not to have it, but if, you cannot downplay the relevance of the information that you may probably get, right? So you are citing an authentic information that you have based on. So the most ideal form would be to look at references that is validated, preferably peer-reviewed UGC Scopus index journal. That is why your legal database becomes important. Like say you're looking at Heen, JSTOR, because they index journals of certain level and above, right? They have evaluated, reviewed journals that's listed over there. Yeah. So you're looking at the authenticity information. Now you're sharing you're disseminating your information to the public. So you shouldn't go around and saying, EIA does not exist in the Indian legal system. Say you make a claim like that, you cannot cite it because it's not an authentic information. You cannot bluff around, right? One. Second is you're acknowledging the contribution of another researcher, someone's hard-earned work. Imagine your work is being replicated by another without acknowledging the work. Third most important, plagiarism. That is scary in itself. Saumi, can I come? You will, yes, in your research proposal too, but can I come to you? Because thank you for raising it. That would definitely be a topic in itself, but I will definitely clarify that. Is it okay? Yeah. The most important, plagiarism. You need to clear that not just humans, but that AI. Turnitin or whatever, copy, what is it? Copy tricks. You have so many copycat, so many portals that checks your plagiarism. So what happens here is when you're citing someone's resources, you need to clear plagiarism. So you have that done. And another most important, someone who's referring your article would want to see a source and referred. It's actually leading. Yours is a contribution to the pool of information. So you're telling them there are other information existing in this research. So someone reads a research paper would be able to identify and go back and get those researchers, right? That is why you cite those information. So one is definitely selfish to get past plagiarism and to see that your information, your argument has been verified. So especially all of us, right? Say I have an argument on one of the example I'm going to be taking here has been validated by Professor Ubendra Bakshi. What more do I need? I have someone validating my reference. And I'm saying this is the reason and my own findings is the reason. So this discussion was taken back in so and so time, 1970s, So I am validating my research, validating my source, giving credit and acknowledgement to people who have worked before me, and my literature being a pool of information that's gone in. Because they also see how many of them are cited. So when you go to Google Scholars and or ORCID IDs and those things that come in, they kind of carry value to you as well as the person citing it. Got it? It's all a give and take process. Now, most important, definitely you have a session tomorrow again on plagiarism. So I'm not going into depth, but just so that you have a continuity. The whole focus is on to avoid plagiarism. Now, how do you plagiarize? What are the ways you look at it? Quoting. When you're quoting someone, paraphrasing. Even paraphrasing, you need to be careful about how you paraphrase it, and summarizing. These are the three ways in which you can avoid plagiarism through citation. Now, when I'm paraphrasing and you say, I drew out an idea from someone, but I don't agree completely with him, there's a unique construction of his idea. The moment I copy that and, not changing the structure of it, gets detected by the plagiarism software. Now, I am copying the idea, altering the idea with the generic words. So that is how I paraphrase it. Or I summarize an article. So I read a 30-page article to one page, maybe say 400 words. So those are the ways that I can use citation and also avoid plagiarism. Now, the crazy part or the boring part. Different citation, and I am not going to be discussing all the citations in detail. I am simply going to be looking at 4 important citations, and we're going to be practicing those 4 important citations. And I think I have time. Yes. Now you have, just so that you know, every country have their citations, right? Americans have their citations. Australia, Canada, Netherlands, Germany, all of their research has India alone has say 15 citations. NLS Uniform Standard, NUGS Standard, GNLU Standard of Citation, ILI Standard of Citation, Standard Indian Legal Citation. Oh my God, all the citations together, by the time you decide on what and what's the challenging part as a researcher? You write an article, you have a particular citation format and you want to send the same article to somewhere else, you have the struggle of altering the citation, right? So one of the tricks that you can do in this case is to identify journals with a similar citation style. One. Second is to make sure you have articles. Now that gets easier with what I'm going to discuss with Zotero. Okay. But otherwise manually, to take note of the most common 4 standard citations. And you would notice to see all of these citations they have certain basic format. Okay. Now you have see all these citations. My slides are getting overflowed with citation methods. But generally, most of the citations follow certain standard formats, right? All of these citations are some common formats that you will see is nothing but the unique identification of that particular resource that you have made. Got it? You see a book, you're referring to a chapter. How do you uniquely identify it? Just like how my name or your name, your identity is uniquely identified is what ultimately the citation is about. Now it's only about where do you place that unified identification. So one citation model would look at, the last name of the person first name of the person last, the last author first author first. I don't know why they have to confuse it, but ultimately you have a structure. So even if Zotero or anyone else is there, right? I personally follow an Excel sheet for any of my research where I have a format that I use. I collect information, which even Zotero easily does it for us. Mendeley, Nendo, all of them easily do it for us. But, some places, so just so that, old school, I have the authors listed out, title listed out, volume listed, edition, publisher, year, and pages. What is the page that I'm referring to? Now, most of the citation that you have is nothing but a permutation and combination of this information. Got it? It's only about where are you placing them, right? For say in Blue Book citation, for instance, you have the author's first name followed by the second name, URL, the last time accessed. You will see it there. And the 20th edition is different from the 21st edition because they don't use last visited. They use the date in a particular format, right? So those integrities is what makes so different. So what I personally would follow is maintain the Excel sheet with this. Of course, you have your digital library, Zotero that's followed, but to see for yourself to verify it, because even Zoteros make errors, especially when it comes to say citing of conference proceedings or seminars, they tend to get a little confused on it. Yeah, you can always give a clarification, but every citation has this general structure that is followed. Okay. Now, what all do we cite? We discuss this. All right, I'm not wasting my time on this. Now, what are the primary sources that you will look at? Primary sources of case law statutes, index journals, edited books, preferably peer-reviewed and above. If you're looking at, depending on the kind of journals that you're looking at, preferably that, because to say ensure authenticity. Most commonly used are what we're going to look at: Blue Book or Scholar, ILI, Indian Standard Citation. I've made a comparative study here. Now, when you're looking at Blue Book, it doesn't make sense for you to completely study this because this is what is automated on the other hand. But you're looking at the citations to see how Blue Book would cite a book, right? You would have done it that in your the first chapter of Calvin E. Williams' book would refer to. So the author, title of the book, publisher, year, and page number. And as an author, what is referred important for you to remember? So what I've not referred here is the page number that you are referring to must be included for your authenticity. Or Scholar follows a similar kind. ILI also refers to a similar kind, but in standard form, they put the last name first and the first name last. Got it? And there you can see, when you see, you can see how, this is an example that I've given here, where you're looking at the particular page number. So that is where book, if you're referring to a particular book that we are looking at, right? Now, if you're looking at a journal, I've cited my own journal. How are the different? So one of the advantages that you have when you look at a particular legal database is you have the citation shared there itself. So when you say cite this journal, they provide the citation for you, right? Or if you're looking at Heen online, for instance, the first page of Heen, when you download it, they provide the exclusive citation for it. So if you want an Scholar style, Harvard style, or whatever particular style, he provides it to you. So you're looking at the author's name, you're looking at the article, journal published, page number, starting page number, and the year. And there again, you will prefer to what is the year that, or the page number that you're referring to. Now, when it comes to SILC, you would, make an alteration. So just pay attention to what is that alteration that you're looking at. Now, what is the difference that you would need to take care here is, depending on, say, now suppose you're sending a journal that requires a blue book citation. What is the change that you want to make when it comes to SILC? This can be done manually or using your reference management tool. Okay, I am a person who started using reference management tool because citation was driving me crazy. Okay, and I don't like suppress, so we'll come to it. Now, in case of statutes, bills, so what are you commonly going to be citing? So what are the literature that you would be referring to? Statutes, bills, reports, case laws, books, journal articles, magazines, maybe magazine on e-resources, definitely. Sometimes remotely videos or YouTube links, right? So you're looking at how each of this is distinguished, right? How Blue Book would generally cite a statute. The provision with the statute name, important is the year act of so and so, dated. SICL, for instance, right? SILC, for instance, makes it, they wanted to make it a little different from the rest. Would say dated on. So when is it come into effect? Act of 2021, dated so and so. So if it's a bill, what is the draft? When was it presented before a particular body? What was the amendment that was referred? What was the regulation that was referred? Then you have case laws. We all know how AIR, SEC. So AIR, SEC has specific citation methods that can be used. And it's suggested that if you're using AIR, use that. So AIR, you can see, has a way in which it's cited. So AIR, year, SC, page number. Now, when it comes to SEC, you have a particular model. Year is in the bracket, volume, SEC, so and so. Criminal law journal, you have the citation given in beginning of that journal. So you would take care of those while citing those Indian cases. Got it? Now, because why I'm rushing through here is, I will share that, share 2 documents with you for citation that you can use for reference. This is just as mathematical formula, right? E-resources, how do you cite the URL? So you copy paste the URL last visited on, which has been changed right now. So author, journal, article, which is the source, URL link, when did you visit? And the explanation is because you don't know if at the time of reading the journal, it's existing or not. Because if you noticed, once you send out a publication, you don't know if that article has survived or not for next 6 months. EPA says they take up to 1 year when your data can become irrelevant also. So that is the reason why you refer to the year on which you've accessed certain sources. Got it? Yeah, so that is how, generally Indian law reports, how it generally gets cited. And so you have this ILI's publication and NLU Delhi certain publications that you can use, which I share with you so that, you have an idea about how these citations work. Now, the most important, use your technology to your advantage. I have done one of my chapter of thesis on my phone. Your phone is a smartphone for a reason. Use it to the max. Because especially Zotero's app, I've only used Zotero, I haven't used Mendeley or EndNote. So you have these apps that can help you out. So you use technology to your advantage for your research paper and citation, right? Now we're going to look into that. How do we do that? So for example, as a scholar, as a person who's advanced in, you're no longer a student. You are either a PhD scholar or a faculty who's a working professional who has enough load on yourself, right? So how are you going to be sitting down and doing a research writing for it? Now, it's not always possible that you carry your laptop around to sit down and type. One of the things that I found to do is how do you use a phone for this particular research? Yeah. So when we use this, one of the apps, they have so many apps. One of the things that I would do is create an, WhatsApp group for myself and put out my ideology over there. Right. After I put out my ideology over there, or I use Microsoft 350 where I have OneDrive on my phone. Use Microsoft, put in my ideology. You can always come back and edit. See, having your concept, because when you would have probably be traveling is when you have that concept in mind. You probably has this ideology that come out. Draw it out, put it there, and you would, if you're reading on it, attach those to a reference management tool. Okay. Now, once you have that, it's easy for you to start working on it. So some of the things that I've used for my research, from personal experience, is Microsoft 365, Zotero, Notion, Notes are few of the apps that's actually helped to get the concept, get it into writing, because you might not be in a position to access a system, have it put in, save the reading materials on Zotero, which naturally draws out your citation for you. Yeah, and then develop your digital library and come back and edit it in the system. So I would personally recommend that all of you have your OneDrive in place, have your portals in place while you're doing it, especially PhD scholars. Please make sure you use these to your advantage. Okay. Now, we're going to be doing, remember, we said we're going to be doing some practice now. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I hope all of you have your topics. Then I will talk about Zotero. All of you have your topic with you. Some ideology, something. Anyone who's yet to identify something. I mean, something based on your readings and everyone. Yes, excellent. Now that you've identified a topic, I would say if you can share it in a chat box, well and good. If not, keep it, because there's probability that someone can take your ideology, but don't worry, nobody wants it. What you're going to do now is identify at least one journal connected to your topic. Can you take a minute to do your Google search? Just Google saying journal on, let's say mine is on experiential legal education. Let's take, for instance, simply Google on that. E-waste detailed study about crisis suggestion for a substantial betterment of. Excellent topic. Can you please help me brief it to maybe a little more concise? A little more small? About e-waste management. Okay, maybe let's leave it at this. Can you find a journal for it? Journal. Environmental Law Journal. I'll give you exactly 1 minute for Google search to find a journal. Let me know once you're done, okay? Scopus, not Scopus, peer-reviewed, UGC, anything. But unfortunately, your institution doesn't recognize, because of IQAC demands, don't recognize other journals. Did we get one journal at least? Anyone who's not got a journal? If you've not got a journal, take a generic journal. That's fine. So GNLU, I mean, any, in fact, NUAL's journal on legal, they have on environmental law journal, they have on high technology, anything. Are we all on the same page? Please let me know once you're done. Natural Climate Journal, excellent. Okay. Everyone else? Anyone else who's got? JST is not a journal, dear. It's a database. I want a journal like, say, Soumi, can you give me a topic so I can tell you maybe an example? Like, say, if I'm going to look at, mine is legal education. My research is on legal education. So I would look at journals like Asian Journal. Elsevier is also a publisher, right? So you need to look at a journal of Elsevier. Okay, yeah. Indian Journal of Social Secretary. My God. Okay. Yeah. So Elsevier has so many journals like Law Teachers. The Law Teacher is one of their journal, if I'm not wrong. I don't know. It's Taylor and Francis. Yeah. Taylor and Francis has a journal. So they have a journal, Law Teacher. They might have a journal. The Indian Law Journal is a journal by Law and Taylor Francis. So Elsevier also has a journal that comes out. So look at a specific journals for LGBT laws, protection of trees, excellent. Okay, protection of trees, right? So you can look out for environment.
Excuse me, ma'am, your microphone is
Unmute. Okay. So now say labor law reporter. Now laws for protection of trees. Let's take the CIRA law journal, the Environment Law Journal of NLS itself, for instance, or Nuance has a journal dedicated to environment law, right? I'm just giving an example. So that is where you would potentially want to publish yours, right? Now I hope all of you have a journal in hand. If no journal works, you can send to Ramaya journal also. Ramaya has a journal. Every institution will have a Christ Law Journal, Christ Law Review. Then you have every university for that matter has a law journal. Got it? That publishing, not the publishing agency, but the book where you, the place where you want to write, send out your article to. Now, once all of you have got your journal, I'm not going to ask you to look through the writing style. That's your homework. Okay? Go back, check the writing style. How are the articles gone through? Don't read word by word, but just see how have they structured, what have they looked at, what kind of journals have they taken in if you're looking at a general. Now, I'm going to give you exactly 2 minutes. You have your, so now when you take about LGBT, right, Paulnami, what happens is, what about LGBT, right? It's a very generic, right? So now let's say recognizing of LGBT right for the purpose of domestic matrimonial right. Yeah, exactly. Good. Excellent. Matrimonial rights. Now you might say in the light of one of the cases that came about. Got it? Now you have that specific for your research article, because we're looking at 300, looking from a 2000 word point of view to a 10,000. So depending upon the word limit that you have, that's where you look at the writing style. All right. So now I'm going to give you 2 minutes. You're not going to read on anything. You're not doing anything else. But what you're going to do now is to write down, say, 5 or 6 sentences on your topic. Okay, simply just write down what is your ideology on that topic, because I'm going to take you back to citing something. Okay. Let me know once you're done. I'll give you exactly 2 minutes. You can share it in the chat box. It'll be nice for discussion. Trust me, nobody's going to be judged on the writing styles. Okay. This is a learning process. So if you can preferably share it, it's best to have that discussion so you get a clarity on what we're referring to here. And please remember, this is not a hard and fast rule. This is just an probability of what may be acceptable. Yeah, if you can just share, if you've typed in your chat box, preferably put it down in your chat. If you're using a phone, please put it down in your phone. Let me know if at least 5 of you are done. Excellent. I have an answer. So can I take this as an example for discussion, if you don't mind, rather than taking my own, right? I'm not going to decipher each and every one of it. Now that you have this write-up, right? Yeah, Riddhi Chowdhury. Riddhi, now that you have this particular write-up, now what we're going to do is to see how are you going to be, now you have a particular lot of information that is in hand. Now, let's say you're going to Google an article for the purpose of this exercise alone. You're going to be Googling one article relevant to the write-up that you've shared. Okay. Now, so what is the problem here? Well, Srishma, can you tell me what is the problem that you're identifying here? Because of the digital human rights as concerned. So what is that what was your topic, honey? I'm sorry, I think I missed this topic. Srishma, I don't think you shared your topic here. Huh? Now you have something problematic about it, right? Now, So shall we do it together then? Now that all of you have a paragraph, I'm going to go back and let's say this is my sample work. I don't know if it's paused. Can you see this? It's loading 1 second.
Yes.
Okay. Say I have a sample work. I've done a sample work here. Even Zoom is tired. Yeah, look at this. So just random write up some sample work I've done here. Now, what I'm going to do is to see, I have an ideology here about how urban slum is a problem, urban slum upgradation is an important thing, and why it is important. So my topic here is how do you integrate legal education institution and urban slum upgradation. Now, for that purpose, I have a paragraph drawn out to say how urban slums look at and how, what are the challenges in urban slums and why you need that upgradation. What is the jurisprudence or what is the ideology that's been shared? What is the opinion or the academic discourse existing on urban slum discourse, right? So I've just put out a paragraph here, some random stuff that I've written. Now, I have this information about what Professor Ubendra Bakshi has mentioned. I need to find a citation to this. So what I'm going to do now is, I hope all of you have your Zotero downloaded on your phone. I would personally say download Zotero on the phone. It's the best that you can have. Now, once you've downloaded Zotero, you can, you would see that you can add them as an extension in your phone as well as on, this is Firefox or Chrome. I don't know if it works on Safari. I haven't seen it work properly on Safari, but Firefox or Chrome gives you as an extender here, right? So now what happens here is I have an article that talks about, that talks about urban commons or urban slums and, related how, importance of urban settlement, urban slums. Now I'm going to be using this. I want to use this article. I want to save this article. I want to use this article. I'm going to be saving this article into Zotero. So what happens in Zotero here is, this is my, can you see? Because
No, ma'am, no.
Oh, sorry. Because now can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, this is my sample Zotero form. So what happens, I'm sure all of you would have probably seen, but in my Zotero, I have a digital library that I've developed based on, which is categorized based on the subject and details and my publications and likewise. So I have it saved directly from the web page on Firefox into Zotero. Got it? Are you clear till that? We don't do anything much on it. I hope it's all downloaded and you have it with you. The same option I have on my phone to save. When I click on save it to, you can save it to Zotero, that it gets reflected in your digital library. Now, once I have that saved as a digital form in my library, I have to come back and cite this in my writings. Okay, are you with me? So I hope all of you have your Zotero on, and I hope now what you're going to do is find out in your plain Google search. Please see if you can find an article related to the topic that you've shared here. Say, for example, e-waste management, digital era, LGBT related to marriage. What is the idea? Right to privacy. Then why not to LGBTQ? Matter, why do we have to discriminate them? Saumi, which part is that you're not clear? Tell me, I can repeat. But you got an idea about, okay, now you have a write-up, right? Now your next task is to find one paper through your Google search now of, yes, I'll come to that. Okay. So first is, I hope you have a paragraph. Now you have, did you find one title, one Google search item that you could find related to your topic? Give me a thumbs up if you do, then we'll go from there. Let me know if you have. Before that, all of you, I mean, at least few of you have Zotero. Anyone here doesn't have Zotero downloaded? The YouTube link that's given to you is, I'm sure you would have also used it. So now what I'm going to do is, you have one article that's found? Now I found one that's related to mine, whatever I wrote. Yeah. Now I'm going to, earlier what we would have done, what I would have done is Control A, copy paste, transfer it somewhere. But fortunately, or I would have done cite this article. You have an option somewhere here, which I can't see now. Yeah, I think the reference tool here. Yeah. So the different reference formats they have given over here, right? Now, what I'm going to do here, because I have Zotero, it is added as an extension. Can you, if you're using Firefox, you would see that you have an extender on your web page as save to Zotero. Okay. One is that you can also manually add your articles to Zotero. So what you've downloaded for him, what you've downloaded from Jester, what you've downloaded from anywhere else, you can have that included. Now you would probably have a confusion about what happens to the physical book that you have used. Even that, you have a space in Zotero to add in the details. Say, I will come. Now you've saved, right? So let's say you've saved till here. Let's say you're with me till here. You found an article. Okay. You have clicked. I'm presuming you have the extender. Otherwise, please make sure you have this attached immediately after the session in your computer and on your phone. Please have the app on your phone. Yes. Then you have saved it. Yes. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my writing. Once I go back to my writing, now I want to cite it here. Yeah. So in your Microsoft again, so I use the 365, this is super cool. Why? Because see the editor's code, spell check. So make sure you have these tools used to your advantage. Technology is not against us. Okay. Make sure you have this, whatever possible to. So here I have an extended added to Microsoft as site add using Zotero. Now in Zotero, I need to say, this is what I'm searching, commoning of the city, survival of urban, right? I have it cited. Okay. Don't get confused now. Now you have another problem here. How do you determine what is the citation method that, I'm sorry, someone's unmute. Or is it just me? Yeah. Now this, what I've used here is the Blue Book citation. Got it? Now what I've done here is I have gone to see what I have an option here to decide on what is the citation method. Say Zotero here, document preference, or I think you can edit it. Let's say where it is. You can add your different citation methods, choose what is a citation method that you want to choose. So you can choose Oscola, you can choose Blue, you can decide your citation. And if not anything, you can actually train them to say which is the particular form of citation that you want to follow. Say, is it a journal, newspaper article? How do you want to title it? So this is somewhere you in case you don't, it's a physical copy of an information that you have. You can provide information manually in, choose the method of citation that you want to follow in this case, right? And cite it using them. So now citation, it becomes absurd to try and, okay, I'll tell it once more. Once it just, yeah. So one, now did you get till the article you got online? Did you get that? No, the key here is to have Zotero added as an extension on your web page of whatever you're using. So it may be Mozilla, it may be Chrome, add it as an extender. So you have an option, technically, you have an option to add it an extender. If you have a technical challenge, ask probably IT department to help you with that, right? Because I had asked my IT department, either the YouTube video should help you out, but otherwise, and also have it added to the Word document. So you can add them as a plugin. So Zotero appears over here, right? When you download Zotero itself, you have that as an option. Once that's done, you have your so what you do here is, I have saved my article. One second. I have saved my journal into Zotero in my document. So I've compartmentalized it based on the area of research that I'm working on currently. So you might be reading. So I can actually, this works on your smartphone also. So let's say, like, you see this? There's an article here, right? Let's say, oh, this was the case of the woman being killed. Okay, let's say. Now I have an option. Can you see? I have an option here that goes to save, which comes here as, I'm not sure if it's visible, Zotero, right? So this gets saved. Can you see? I think the background is kind of blurring it out. So what happens here again is, once you save it into the folder, the title or the citation is automatically developed by the tool. So you don't have to manually sit and mug up Blue Book or Scholar or ISI, ILI or any other. So once that is done, once it's copied there, I'm going to go back. Yeah, I'm going to go back and use my work here. Can you see? I mean, it's just loading. Use here, cite using Zotero. So I had pre-chosen Blue Book as the citation. So in Zotero, you have an option to choose the different citation model. So they have models ranging from, say, 50 plus citation model, or Scholar, the standard citations, ILI, everything is inbuilt, right? Even manual, say I was showing you how the manual works here. Yeah, so I want to add something here. I want to manually add a book. So I'm going to say legal education in India. I can give an abstract. I give my details here. And using this, I'm going to cite saying legal education. Okay. Actually, let's take this example. Now it comes and I'll show you. It comes automatically in that specific model here. Got it? So it just doesn't make sense for you to sit out and definitely you should know, because you know what happens, especially in case of conferences proceeding, there have been spotted errors. But this is the best way that you can cite your work. So no longer, so what you can do is, once you've written your concept, right? Once you've written the concept in, you add a reference in the bracket saying, you might be typing through your phone, you might be reading through your phone, add a reference saying, okay, you referred it from this particular article of this person. Then you can, when you come back and review it, you can add the citation using this in the specific format. So now how does it help you? Now you want to send out a journal for different, say, like say, Jindal journal doesn't accept because the theme is different, right? But their citation style is different and you want to send it out to analyst journal. Now, analyst journal has analyst standard citation, or, which is similar to maybe a specific model. You want to change the citation. It's easy. You delete that, use the same person's details, go back to Zotero, change the citation style to, it will take you exactly 1 hour max to change the citation styles of all that is mentioned here. Now, earlier, what did we have to do? We have to manually sit down and work on it. So that is why I say you must be using your technology to your advantage. Got it? Did you get an idea? Were you able to try to cite it? Did you try citing it? All of you? All of you? I mean, some of you at least? Some of you, the idea that I wanted you to try doing this is to show you it's not as intimidating as it may look. Writing an article, yes, it's a task. It's about more of your intellectual creativity, which is a burdensome process than the technical challenge. Understood? So you don't need to stop yourself just because, they come up with some random suggestion about a citation method. Got it? So you don't need to mug up every style. It's I would personally say humanly impossible to understand every citation style because you're looking at the integrities of how it alters. Now you don't need to do that. So you don't need to stop yourself from doing it. Got it? So now you have a topic. Now you have a topic. Now there's one journal that can do your topic. Now you have one paragraph that you started working a topic, and your homework or your task is to see how much can you cover using whatever you have learned in the 2.5 days and what you're going to be learning forward about. Excellent. So you have it with you. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Google Scholars are brilliant. So it's about whichever tool is that you're comfortable with. You would have seen referee work. You would have seen other parts, different models about different people using different, according to their convenience. I'll just share the slides again. Okay. Yeah. At least did you gain that confidence to say, you know what, even you will be able to actually cite them. You will be able to write a topic, and identifying a topic can be as simple as a lecture that's done in your class to a part of your PhD or part of your discussion or likewise. And now that you've identified a topic, please make sure you keep the momentum and put yourself, like say 10 weeks time to come out with an outline or a structure. Yeah. So you can work out, I hope, at least this takes away that fear, whatever you had, hindering you from actually doing it. Then you have other reasons why, you have a writer's block. You have a lot of other things that's, stopping you from writing. Not everyone's a born writer. Some people are not natural writers. And that's okay, right? Different people have different skills attached to them. But unfortunately, IQAC won't spare you or your appraisal form. Yeah. Now you have an article in place. The final area is publishing it. Now, the good thing is research publication is something that Anisha is going to deal with, and I'm going to leave the burden on him. But just so that you are introduced to it, you have your journal published. Look at and some of them are calling on rolling basis. You have to see what is the kind of journal, preferably those peer-reviewed is the preferred journal, institutionally reputed journals are all options that you can send out your article to. Now, one of the suggestion that one of the most troublesome process you have is you have written an article. Can you at the same time send out to multiple journals? Yeah, because some of them would say it should be unpublished original work. Now, one of the things that's a tricky or a gray area that you have here is you may consider sending out to different. It is an unpublished work. It is not some of the journals you have to be careful if they ask you the question if it's under consideration before anyone else. Got it? So that's a very tricky interpretation that you would do. So where some journals, like say some of the international journals particularly, they're realistic to say the original form can be used for other journals, but the edited form, right? You can improvise and publish it elsewhere, provided you give an acknowledgement to the international journal. Got it? Otherwise, what they would say is, another thing that you can look out to see is, if you send it out to different journals and you get the response from the first journal, you can voluntarily withdraw yourself from the other journal. But that is completely depending on the journal requirements. Got it? Now, the duration is the disaster here. Now you have journals that take from 3 months to journals that take 1 year. So now the question before a scholar would be, do you wait for that 1 year to see that written piece? If God willingly all of yours get published, what happens if it doesn't get published? Because that piece of your work is being rejected a year later, right? So how do you improvise on that? So there, look out for journals that lets you send in journals that doesn't provide a disclaimer on saying those under consideration, rather only on unpublished and say original work. So because your journal otherwise is not published, So you can look out to journals who permit that kind of variance. Now, once you have a paper in hand, publishing is actually beyond you, right? So maybe looking at the indexing, how it's done, would be covered in the later lecture. So with that, I think it's the best that I take, conclude my session and open the forum for discussion, doubts, any suggestions. I mean, in terms of you want to share with the participants, something your experience says, you can please share, open. So now I think I leave it open to you. Yeah.
Oh, good evening, madam.
Yeah. Good evening. Sorry.
Actually, I downloaded and plugin also. I got it that Zotero in that Word document, but
Okay.
I don't know how to use it. That I was
okay.
I used to go to that Chrome website and Google Scholar button. I used to put it that citation thing and used to get APA, MLM methods are there, and from there I copy it and put it. And after you explained to me, now I got that same citation, everything is there available in my Word document itself. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now I
So
learned and I'm very happy about it. And
it's like a superpower, when you find Zotero exists. I mean, not just Zotero. Zotero is not paying me for this, okay? But otherwise, also to know that these reference materials, right? Reference management tools exist, and it's within the academic integrity to use them.
Yeah.
Then why should you, waste your energy trying to look out which name, who's the last name, who's the first name, how many authors?
But I don't know that easy way we can use it that and I can write more. And thank you very much for showing this.
That's a breakthrough. Very good, ma'am. Very good. So happy because see, your intellect should be taking your time. You reading, you understand, your thought should be taking time.
I'm not at all. I have till now I have not used for one time that Zotero citation. And even I have the Zotero library. I used to store it. And I don't know how to.
Brilliant. Now you understand it's as simple as that. Yeah. Good. I'm so happy. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Any doubts? So I can, I don't know, the IQACs, IQAC coordinate, especially your teachers, please catch hold of them and make sure, they use this for writing. Okay.
Ma'am, you told us that during writing of this proposal, we also need to add the citation. Can you please?
I'm sorry. Who am I talking to?
I'm Shomi, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. You told us that for writing the research proposal, also we need to add the citation. Can you please tell us how to do that?
Okay. So what happens in research paper? I'll quickly, just quickly tell you. Research proposal. It depends on the page number, right? But something that you have an introduction or background portion to the research proposal. See, your research topic is not out of the blue, right? Your research proposal has two parts. One is what you as a scholar is going to be doing in future. And one is the existing literature that is in place. So you have a portion of introduction, background, and literature review that comes in your research proposal, establishing why your research is significant. What you highlight as the significance of your research area. And while showing the significance of your research area, you will bring in the academic discussion already existing in your research. Okay. There you will need to cite your source. One. Second is, in the literature review, when you're identifying the research gap that you're going to be filling in as a scholar, you need to cite those. It might be the previous PhD scholars, Shobh Ganga, for instance. That is going to be your best buddy when you're doing your proposal. Shobh Ganga. So you're going to be citing those. What was the existing literatures or the research that's already done? What is it you're going to be filling in? You will be citing those. The reason being, you are showcasing that though there is literatures, there have been work, my work contributes or is addressing this gray area that is existing. After you establish that is when you will come down to say, this is how I am going to be justifying my study. Are you okay? So, why? Because you can also, unfortunately, some of the university, not all, run your research proposal through plagiarism.
Okay.
Yeah, because especially on this side, right, their research proposal is only 2 pages. What do you write in 2 pages? And they focus so much on academic discourse, right? Your academic discourse as to, okay, what is an existing understanding of the topic that you're talking about? You refer that. Okay, that is why you need to refer to research proposal. Don't forget to cite in your research proposal. Got it?
Got it, ma'am. Got it. Thank you so much.
Yes. Anything else? You can let me know. I'm here. It'll be nice to know. Anything? And this is to all the IQAC core. See, even for your resume, it's the best to have it, have your publication improved and all that. But we push our stuff always to the second. So as in academia, right? You would prioritize your students, you would prioritize your teaching, you would prioritize everything except yourself. But for your personal growth, it's also important to improve your personal learning, right? So it's important that you come out with publication, and that is what IQAC is also probably trying to do. So this is to all the IQAC coordinators, whoever's here, who is going to go back and say, encourage your scholars to at least come out with one draft article in a sem, at least one. Maybe if our person can't find an ideology based on the subject that they're doing, it might be reading material converted to an article. Ask them to draw out an opinion. So this is an exercise that you can do in your institution to encourage publication. An opinion on a subject area, a lecture that you've already done. So you would have made your notes, you've made your slides. You may agree with the notes or not. See how you can question that. Yeah. And please, now that you've gained your momentum, slight level of intimidation is moved, please take it forward and come out with a publication. Right? And if nobody publishes you, please, institutions can come bring it out as monograph with ISBN numbers, which is brilliant. It increases your institutional publication and your publication. It's actually, it's definitely valued globally, right? There's all, you need to start somewhere. So there are some ways that you can bring out this publication, integrate with your master students and get them done. And, you can actually bring out a lot of things if you wish to. Yeah. So anything you can tell me, I know it's almost time, but you can let me know if there's anything else you need to clarify, or let's stay connected on LinkedIn. I've shared my LinkedIn link here so we can stay connected, know what our works are like, and please come to the site. We can meet. I'll come meet you when we come. Yeah. I hope it was.
Yeah, thank you. It was an excellent lecture. It was excellent and very well. The flow was beautiful. And yeah, some of the, older ones like us, we are not very, we keep doing Zotero, Mandela and all that. Sorry, Mendele, and then forget also. So one thing important that I learned, that we should never lose practice.
Yes.
So yeah, that's good. And using the phone is also a good idea because we keep up.
Because if you notice, ma'am, it might, you barely be away from your phone, maybe 5-10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So that is an excellent tool that you don't have to break your research. Your thoughts can be converted to your actual doing, right? So you can, I found that as a breakthrough, of research work. A lot of things get done.
Yeah,
even I would like to say something, ma'am, that your session was so inspirational for us. It was motivational because I was bit intimidated because of these publication, everything, writing an article. Now, definitely, I'll be listening to you and we'll write an article. We'll write an article at least quarterly basis. Thank you so much.
Excellent, Manisha, especially now that you probably have some topic, right? Go ahead, just start because the momentum is there, right? Just pick it up. You'll have other blocks. That's okay. Start somewhere. It's all.
Yeah, I'm pursuing my PhD, so that will definitely help me a lot.
Yes, your PhD topic in different ways itself. So whatever you cannot include in your thesis, make it into a publication.
It's technology based. I don't want to mention name, but it is technology based. So now using a mobile for Zotero, now that's a great thing for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's encouraging for me too, because good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah. I hope, Shiba ma'am, I think that concludes our session.
Yes, ma'am. Over to you, Arkanandani.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Arkanandani, Assistant Professor at LSR Law College. Here I am entrusted with the duty of delivering vote of thanks. Today, in the third day of the one-week online faculty development program on legal research and pedagogy in this changing era, we have a wonderful and fruitful session on writing and publishing of a research paper with appropriate citation methods by our respected resource person, Dr. Riya Roy Mammon. The entire session was insightful, permeated with a deep understanding of the importance of implementing appropriate methods of citation and how it can benefit a legal professional in writing and publishing a research paper in a unique way. On behalf of LSR Law College, from the innermost recesses of my heart, I thank Dr. Riya Roy Mammon for such an informative and engaging session. From my personal viewpoint, I felt it more like an inspiring and motivating session. And special thanks, ma'am, for introducing Cetera before us. Next, let me express my sincere gratitude to all the conveners of the conveners and all the participants who were present here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. See you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll see you.
Now the participants can leave. We can join tomorrow.
Thank you, Shiva ma'am.
Yes, thank you.